There we are. Yay. Hello, everyone. Happy Tuesday or Wednesday, wherever you are on the planet. Thanks for your patience as I was driving my sweet daughter home from school. Well, switching up the times. Yep. Yeah, we're happy to be here. Happy to be here today. And just a reminder that next week we will be here at a similar time as well. So,
yeah. Maybe the exact same 3 minutes late. It's okay.
Yeah.
You made it 3 minutes late.
Made it. So good. Yeah. Well, I am Bonnie Schmidt. If you are new to this space, welcome, welcome. So happy to have you. And I'm joined by my amazing friend,
Liz Joy Moore. I was like, is she going to say it or am I going to say it?
Her name is Liz Joy Moore.
We don't have scripts if it isn't obvious.
Yeah. Like, awesome. Yeah. So happy with all of you are here.
Welcome.
Welcome.
You go, Buzz. You go.
You go. No, you go, Liz.
Yeah, no, you. If you are joining us or if you're new, pop hello in the chat. Just know that because we are going through StreamYard, we won't see your name unless you click the little link that's above it. Otherwise, it just says like Facebook user or something, and that's fine.
Yeah.
But just let us know that you're here, where you're coming from, and welcome for this good, important discussion on courage.
Yeah. I know, it's so exciting. So, we discovered that May is Mental Health Awareness Month, at least here in the United States. And it sounds like maybe in England as well. I'd be curious, those of you that are in New Zealand and Australia, if there's kind of a Mental Health Awareness Month, let us know, or in Ireland or wherever you are. And as we were thinking about mental health awareness, we really decided on sort of this theme of courage for the month, because we really know how much courage it just takes to walk through the fire of anxiety and depression. And, courage really, truly is fear walking. And we just really honor all of you and your journeys so much, and your stories and all of your lived experiences. And it's been really powerful to just be behind the scenes and in the group and seeing the ways that all of you are lifting each other up. It's just a really beautiful process. And that also takes a lot of courage, just to show up in these online spaces with people that you don't know and, just work to build that trust and that community that we've come to really nurture here. So, so we're really excited to talk about courage today.
Yeah, that reminds me, Bonnie, Bonnie and I obviously talked and connect a lot, and we both had a really hard time going live anywhere. Bonnie knows that Bonnie had a little more experience than me before I started, and I'd always be like, Bonnie, I'm breathing and I can't do it. I can't hit the button, so it's, even the things that now we know are coming, becoming a little more comfortable for us. And I lead groups of people, but it's, to each thing, it can draw in some anxieties and take some time getting comfortable, which actually reminds me, and thanks for those that popped on and just shared, where it is that you hope or could use a little more courage. I noticed a lot were involved in different areas of our lives around safety, which is super not a surprise. It totally makes sense.
Yeah.
Safety of communicating with another, safety of sharing your space. I think that was Sahira, renting our space and sharing your space. Safety of joining a group or finding new people, or a job interview. I think
job interviews,
right? Yeah. So a lot of trying new things or doing things feel a little uncomfortable, which can feel really unsafe and drive our anxiety up. So just thanks for those comments and contributions. And a lot of them, Bonnie and I were like, yep. So we got it. Yeah.
Totally. It's so true. Yeah. So we wanted to start with a little bit of a mindfulness practice around courage that Liz will walk us through. And again, we're just so excited to sort of bring the science and then the mind, body, heart aspects all together, because that's really what makes powerful long-term change. And so we've really enjoyed over the last bunch of sessions just really diving deep with all of you. And it's great that we're able to be in this space together to just be able to hold that for each other. So thanks for participating in that part too. So Liz, take it away.
Yeah. And Bonnie, thanks for bringing that up, especially if you're new, and you begin to watch some of the stuff that Bonnie and I present, so much of the science and data is out that we can and should support ourselves through thought-based practices and body-based practices. So that's what we consistently bring, and approach different topics, different struggles with both concepts in mind, right? And so Bonnie and I love and geek out on the science because it connects to the body, and it's like, this makes sense, and this is so fascinating and interesting, and whoa, when I feel this way, there's reasons in my body for why, right? And so it's not one or the other, it's both and. So we'll do a little bit of just to kind of introduce us to this theme of courage, a little bit of a separation or experience between just me asking you a question and then feeling your way through a question, right? Feeling your way through a word or an emotion, okay? So we could sit here and we could say, hey, what is courage for you? And then we could just have you think it through, tell us out loud, right? And a little bit of, I did that in the live yesterday, right? I came on and said, where could you use a little more courage? And you thought about it and you responded, and you have good answers, okay? To really begin to understand how courage feels and what it looks like, we can use mindfulness, and that connects us to the emotion, allows us to explore it on a layer that's below the surface, and dive deeper into that experience of courage, which is where a lot of information resides for us, where a lot of the work can be done. Okay. So again, I could ask you, what is courage? How would you define courage, right? Or we could do this. So join me and Bonnie. Dun, dun, dun.
Dun, dun, dun.
This is kind of intense, yeah.
Well, I feel like I'm like, okay, I'm gonna need my superhero cape, getting ready for my courageous act here. It's all good.
What if we just disappeared? Like, we're gonna
so good.
Yeah. So just find a comfortable seat. And if you've never done any mindfulness or meditation before, it doesn't matter. Like, the only thing you really need to step in and do this with us is a willingness. And the interesting thing about meditation and mindfulness is it's a very, very simple concept, but because we get in our own ways, we make it way more difficult than it needs to be. All right. So really a couple things you need, and I teach this in our program, is that you really just need the willingness to accept the words that are coming out of my mouth, right? Which means you need to have a bit of an openness to a willingness. Okay. And when you notice that you kind of lose your train of thought, or you're off in thought, which will happen, right? To everyone. The willingness to just return and come back and try again, and not use that moment to be frustrated, which that is hard. That is hard to not get frustrated at, especially in the beginning, right? And then as you do it more and more, it gets so much easier. You're like, oh, look at where I went. That's so fascinating. Okay. And you come back. There's a big difference between getting frustrated and doing that. So that's why I believe curiosity helps so much. Anyway, side note. So just find a comfortable seat, and you can just allow your shoulders to kind of drop, your hands to fall however they like. And you can keep your eyes open if you'd like, especially for those that have experienced a lot of trauma. Sometimes that's helpful, okay? Or you might want to put your back against a wall like Bonnie's doing, okay? Otherwise, you can draw your eyes to a lower or a gentle close. And we're going to explore for just a couple minutes here. Just follow my words and watch where you go. First, let's take a long breath. So focus on length here, in through the nose and out through a pursed mouth, like you're kissing the air around you. Long inhale. Do that just a couple times and focus on connecting to your body on the exhale, and just see if you can melt away any more tension that you feel in your body. Maybe in your shoulders. Maybe in your neck or your arms. maybe all the way down to your feet. Just notice if you're clenching anything, your jaw, your legs. And see if you can use that exhale to release. And then allow your body to come back to its natural pace of breathing. Here you can take a moment to simply notice the rise and fall of your belly, your chest. One will be more subtle than the other. You can notice the light on your eyelids if your eyes are closed. And the sounds around you. And again, just take one more long inhale through the nose, and this time out through the nose. And then picture, draw into your mind's eye something or someone that you would define as being or acting wholly courageous. And if you find your mind is scanning, come back to your feeling body. Feel your way through the word courage. And then see what pops up into your mind. And if you see something or someone, see if you can notice any detail of what allows you to know that this is courage in front of you. Courage acting. Is there a certain movement, sound, or sensation or feeling? What is this thing or person doing? How are you seeing courage displayed in your mind's eye? Take a long breath, and as you do, just draw your awareness into your breath of this picture, of this moment, of this thing. Feel the air fill your heart, and then breathe out. And if your eyes are closed, you can slowly open them up. Do you have a picture, Bonnie?
I do. I thought actually about a lot of different things in that little time. So for me, actually, the first thing that popped into my head was my mom, actually, because my mom had a lot of trauma growing up. Just both of her siblings passed away young. And it was just a lot. It was a lot on their family, and so just that courage to stay. Like when you talked about movement, actually, I just thought about scenarios of like where everyone is running away. And then there's the certain people that are actually walking towards, right? Like whether it's a big traumatic situation like 9/11, or other things that are smaller, right? Those moments in our lives that you choose to stay. Really, I think it's so courageous to stay and like have a movement towards something when you're And when we'll talk about this, but when your fight and flight is telling you to run, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. How about for you, Liz?
Yeah, I'll share, and I'd love to hear if anyone else went through that and what they experienced. Right now I spend a couple days, a few hours, a couple days of the week watching my two nieces, and one of them, Mirabelle, who's 2.5. She goes into the like, I can't, and she's got a lot of fears. I've noticed much more than her older sister, and one of them is of dogs, of puppies, and I now know it's because of the energy, like an intense dog or the one that jumps. It really makes her nervous. I've since learned that ones that are calm do not. But I've been slowly working with her, just holding her, talking her through it. Like, notice this, watch this, and then of course, I pet it and have her watch me, and she's like, no. She's very resistant. But I pictured her, and I've seen this now. She'll look, and then her eyes will soften, and then she'll do like a little bit of a hand towards the puppy because she really wants to touch it,
Oh, totally.
And so I just was picturing her like putting her hand out there and then pulling it back, and then like putting it out again, and then pulling it back.
Oh, sweet girl.
So yeah, that's what I was picturing. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Oh, so beautiful. Yay. And Kirsty, I know you're on. And we have a lovely Facebook user. Hello. I'm not sure who that is, but yeah, we'd love to hear from you if you have any imagery that came to mind, or feelings or movements or sounds, as Liz was describing, of sort of where courage lives, in your world, and where you've had the opportunity to just bear witness to it and see it. I think that courage is sometimes so much like what we see in the movies, right? Or hear on the news, like those really big, just generally, heroic acts, right? And sometimes I truly believe in my heart that courage just looks like getting out of bed, or going to the grocery store. I was telling Liz, I can think of so many times that I've sat in the parking lot of the grocery store, particularly when I was having a lot of panic attacks. And just being like, okay, like you can do this, you can do this, you can do this. And my body was definitely telling me like, nope, like you're just going to sit in the car, like you're not going in there. And I was like, I'm going in there, and just, sometimes courage can just be doing your daily things, and it's hard for people who don't have severe anxiety in that way to understand how courageous those things really truly are, so today we wanted to talk just a little bit about the science of courage, and thought it would be kind of a neat way to just sort of start this month of bringing together, the geeky science bits with just body and heart pieces, and be able to put them together. So courage really is a cognitive ability, right? A brain ability. And it can either be strengthened when we use it like a muscle, right? Or it's something that can really atrophy if it's not used, and this is because of something called neuroplasticity, which is kind of a big word, but really what it means is everything that we've been talking about, that your brain can shift and change, and that new pathways can be formed, and they're forming all the time, right? So your brain is malleable. We often talk about, and I've shared this little analogy before, but if you're to go in your backyard and drive around on your grass in the same places over and over again, those ruts are going to get pretty deep, right? And that's the same thing with neural pathways. The ones that we're sort of running through over and over again really strengthen. And then, we can pull our car up out of that rut and start driving in some new pathways. So this sort of path towards more courage really is, it's a brain thing, right? It's a brain ability. And I'll talk a little bit more about that. But, through practice and exercise of just little and big, in your life, courageous acts, you can really work to strengthen your courage factor, which I think is incredible, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
It really is. Yeah. So there's these two parts in the brain that kind of act in competition with each other. And one of them, it's called the amygdala, but it's in your emotional centers of your brain. That's kind of where it lies, right? And it's really in charge of your like fight flight response, right? So it's when you're in the cave with the bear and, you know, your system ramps up, you have all of the adrenaline pump into your system, all the cortisol, the stress hormones that pump up and out. And you either get ready to like fight the bear or run away as fast as you can to get out of the cave, right?
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. And so it's really in charge of your fear response. And what's cool, and in reading about this, you know, there's a lot of research that suggests that if we can work to activate a different part of the brain, it has a big long name, but it's a part of the brain that's actually in like your human thinking prefrontal cortex area of your brain. Then we can really help to regulate that fear response. So it's competition between the amygdala and then this other one. It's subgenual anterior cingulate cortex. It's got a big fancy name.
Like, I'm not trying to
just call it like your courage center. You know, they're kind of in competition with each other, and this competition is where courage comes into play, because this courage center of your brain can act to suppress the fear response. So it's incredible when you think about it, right? That we have this part of our brain that can sort of override the fear response, right? And I know that many of you have felt that in action. So again, like I used my grocery store example. One of our members who's been through our All Thrive program, Sharon, she shared this awesome story that she said I could share. That, you know, she was out at the hairdresser, and she typically, that would be a really anxiety inducing place for her, right? Because she wanted to get her hair done, and I think she was getting it colored and cut at least. And she said she started feeling panicky in the chair, and that would have been a situation normally where she said she would have just like run as fast as she could, right? So that fear center's activated, right? And what she was able to do was use all of these tools and strategies that you know, we've been working on in the group, and stay, right? And that was that courage center part of her brain coming in. And she said, I came out with the most fabulous haircut and hairdo, you know, new hairdo. And she was so proud, as she should be, right? And it's like those little things that are so important, you know? And so there's this space, and there's this beautiful quote by Viktor Frankl, who was an incredible human. And many of you may have read the book, Man's Search for Meaning. But he said, between stimulus and response, there is a space. So we're going to call it like the pause, right? And in that space is our power to choose our response. And in our response lies our growth and freedom. So there's this pause part, and this is where courage really comes into play, is this space in between. And I love how, you know, Liz, you speak about that in the sense of mindfulness.
Yeah, and well, that's that space that Viktor Frankl is talking about. And yeah, I mean, boy, there's no better person to speak to courage than that man. But you know, that's the space, you know, I often talk about in meditation, when your mind wanders, your thoughts are actually the invitation for the moment to choose growth, right? And Bonnie and I have mentioned a lot of this neuroplasticity, which feels like this big word, but all, like Bonnie said, all it means is that our brain changes, right? And we know our brain can change, right? But now we have so much science behind it. And in meditation, when you wander in thought, which is the thing that most people get frustrated at, right? Mm-hmm. If you notice, become aware that you've become lost in thought, mm-hmm. and then go, oh, I'm lost in thought, right? And then there's that pause. There's that space that Viktor Frankl is talking about, right? Yeah. And you choose to return to your practice, a sensation, a touch. Often I will talk to anxious clients about like rubbing your fingers together, or something that brings a sense of touch, which is a little bit easier for many of us. And you choose to return, that's the moment that side of your brain that we don't stimulate as often is stimulated. And there's that beginning to create those ruts in a more positive part of our brain, right?
Yeah.
Which I love that analogy. It makes so much sense to me.
Oh,
But
yeah.
so he's talking about this moment, this pause, this space. And that's exactly the space that mindfulness teaches you to become aware of, which I think is a huge reason why it works so well.
Yeah.
Right? We all know we feel like emotions just run over us. And if there's any emotion that feels like it runs over us, it's our anxiety, right? But just like Sharon did, right, where she took that pause. And not only, Bonnie, did she choose to stay, but she was able to stay because she calmed herself down. It wasn't like, I'm just going to deal with my anxiety while I'm here and just fight through it. Right. She chose a different path. Right. But she noticed what was happening, realized it was a choice. Now, these all sound like duh, but to do them and feel your way through them and actually use them is a whole different thing, right? And that's what takes practice. And that's why you'll hear mindfulness is a mindfulness practice, right? But like, for those that have never done it or, are new to it, in just 2 weeks, you will notice a change, right? If you consistently try it on a daily basis, just for a couple weeks, you will notice a marked difference, right? It's completely different when you begin to, even just that not becoming frustrated, right? And like returning, it's very empowering. And so to notice that you've gotten lost in thought and then return, you can always be like,
yeah, exactly. I get it back.
And yet you just got lost in thought. So something that we all think is really negative, right? Being like having anxiety, being lost in thought, right, can turn into a really empowering aspect of our process of stimulating our brains for positive change. So I think that's what Viktor Frankl's talking about.
Yeah, it's so beautiful. Yeah, and again, and we will never say that it is. This isn't an overnight process. So if you're thinking like, oh man, like I miss the pause all the time, and then my like anxiety just ramps up and I can't calm back down, that's okay. So we're not saying that that's not also courageous as well, right? I think that's such an important distinction, right? Like your willingness just to act. Right. Courage has these two just distinct characteristics, right? The first one is the willingness to act. And the second one is the ability to manage your fear and anxiety in order to be able to do that act, right? Maintain the ability of that act. So, and these are all the tools that we're here sharing with all of you. And it's why it's so important that we're here working through the mind and the body stuff. So as your anxiety is coming, one important practice that you can just work on just this week is just to notice if there is a space between that stimulus, right? Whatever, the anxiety provoking thing is, and then your response. Just observe yourself, get curious about it, right? And see if you can just find that space, because that's like the magic sauce in there is that little pause, right? That we can all take that can help to set our nervous system up. Now, if you feel like, you missed the pause and then you're kind of moving through into anxiety, that's where you then bring in all of the body-based things, right? Like breath and like the ease keys practices that we've been doing. So that you'll have lots of tools to bring yourself back to a space where you're a little bit more at ease and at calm, and then can then make that choice moving forward, if that makes sense. So there's lots that we can do to strengthen our courage muscle, but awareness is absolutely the first step. So,
and it's amazing, as we study the neuroscience, and
that's why we're
that everything that we learn and have learned, right, is exactly backing that all of these ways, right, these tools, these methods of like that thought based and body based. It's like, that aligns with this, and that aligns with this, and
so cool.
It is all very supportive. So yes, it does take time, and this is not the opposite of what Bonnie just said. And you can notice change some changes quickly, right?
Yeah.
So like if it was like a scale of like 100%, like, working with your anxiety perfectly, which nobody does, but in just, a day, you can notice a difference. In 2 weeks, you can notice a difference, and it'll be like a 4% difference. But think about how you've been going for so long. 4% improvement of anything feels massive, right?
Oh, yeah. Yes.
Yeah. So, and you notice, you body and your heart begins to really notice that. So it's so cool how that's aligning the science and the body. Yeah.
Yeah. And just honor yourself for wherever you're at in your journey with courage. Because again, just showing up here is an act of courage. If you're here and listening and watching, just being here in this space, being in the Thrive with Anxiety Facebook group, working on yourself, all of those things are acts of courage every single day. All the things that you're doing and working to just improve your mental, emotional, physical, spiritual health, all of those things are huge acts of courage. So we just super honor that. And next week, we're going to dive a little bit deeper into some of the strategies that can help you to really just build this courage muscle. And yeah, that'll also be very exciting to just chat more about.
And we'll also, share ours, and would love some of your stories of just moments of courage, right? Like from the small, right? Choosing the next best thing to like large acts of courage, So come with your stories, come with, an open mind to practice different strategies. And we're excited to have you back as we explore this a little bit more.
Yeah.
But yes, Kirsty, we can pop that quote. And
I just hopped over here to that. This is beautiful. Yeah. This pictured my mom. She lost her husband a few years before adopting me. Their dream was to foster together. I was the third foster child. She did it alone. Yeah. It's so beautiful. Oh my goodness. Wow. What a beautiful story, Kirsty. And so much courage there, right? To just do it alone. And Kathy shared, when I work with a rescued horse and slowly work to build trust and develop a partnership, that takes a lot of courage. Yeah. Oh my goodness. Yeah.
That's like fear walking for me.
Yeah. See, for some reason, Joan of Arc was very clear to mind. Thanks for adding your name, Joy. We're so glad that you're here.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
I'd be curious to discover why too for you.
I know.
For you. Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah. Oh, well, we hope that you all have a very beautiful week, and we'll be really excited to be back here again next Tuesday. And then we'll return to a more regularly scheduled programming. Thanks for your flexibility with all the jury duty that's happening over the next few weeks.
Can you believe we have jury duty at the same time, Bonnie?
No, it's hilarious.
I haven't had it for like 12 years, and all of a sudden, Bonnie, people are conspiring.
Yeah, it's true. So good. Kathy.
Yeah, you see that? Pull that up.
Yes. Let's see. Here we go.
Because I can see it better when you pull it.
Yeah, I did it this morning while I had to drive by myself to an out-of-town medical appointment. Yep. It's so true. Way to go, Kathy.
Awesome.
Yeah. And then, for me, it's like every time I went and got myself in the grocery store, I was like, yes, I can do this. And you can feel it. Like that's your courage muscle, just building every time we're able to move through. And really, courage really is fear walking. And we'll talk a lot more about just that sort of definition and wholeheartedness and what that looks like in the coming weeks. So really excited to dive deep and explore with all of you. So
thanks for being here.
Thanks so much for being here, and we will see you next week.
Bye.
Bye.